Welcome to Pitstop with the Deers Ford Lincoln Auto Amigos. I'm Tony,
And I'm Fernando.
and today we're going to talk to you a little bit about culture at work. Fernando, what's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you at work?
One of the weirdest things that I have been able to experience here while working at Deers is we were able to go to the Chamber of Commerce here in Fremont, and let me tell you, that place is haunted. If you ever get a chance to go, don't. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. They have wonderful staff. The Chamber of Commerce is some of our favorite people work there, and it's a wonderful place, but it might be haunted.
I was in there too, and I saw the downstairs is creepy, but
They have a basement.
I didn't see anything. I didn't
They
feel
have
anything.
tunnel,
So,
and it looks very creepy. It's dark. I wouldn't go down there.
well, don't go down the basement. When I was first started at Deers, and you go on test drives with customers, and I had a young lady that took on a test drive, and we're driving down the road, and one of the things you do as a salesman is you try and make small talk with them, and I was doing that, and I could see her squeezing the wheel tighter, and she started leaning forward, and she says, don't talk to me. So I didn't talk to her, and we're just riding. We're going on the bypass around Fremont, and we just keep going, and I'm wondering, where are we going? And finally turns in on the last possible exit, and we drive, and then she pulls into this house that looks like it's been converted into apartments, and she just gets out and goes inside. And I'm sitting in the car, thinking there's some things I won't do to sell a car, and I have no idea what she's doing. And finally comes back out, gets in the car, of course, doesn't say anything to me. And we get in the car, we back out, almost hit another car, and she drives back to the dealership, and she parks it. And I said, did you like the car? And she goes, I don't want to talk to you. So I don't know at that point if I just thought my sales skills need improved, but it didn't go very well.
Maybe she just
And
needed a ride. Maybe you were her personal Uber.
she needed something. Yeah, but that probably is the strangest thing that's ever happened to me at work. How about what's one job that taught you something that you did?
Well, every job teaches me everything that I do.
What job did you have where you feel, gosh, I learned so much there?
Oh, overall, man, that's such a hard question because every job teaches you something different.
When you said you learned so much, but now I'm wondering, did you pay attention?
Well, yeah, but I mean, every job that I've had taught me different things here and there. Maybe the military has taught me a lot more than I can say and thank them for because the military was just a great experience overall. Teaches you, I wouldn't say discipline all the way, but it does teach you discipline. It teaches you how to use everything you're surrounding and, adjust to what's going on in your life. So, great experience.
I think you take bits and pieces with you from all your jobs, but I'm not a handy person, and I'm the kid who flunked shop class because my birdhouse fell apart. But I had a job. I worked at a resort when I was in college, and I learned how to tile. I learned how to use a spray gun, painting, framing, drywall. We did a lot of those things, and I really never had experience with that. And, to this day, I think that helped me a great deal, especially our first home. We did a lot of things to remodel the house and the garage, but I really thought I took some good things with me from that job. So what were some of your first jobs?
My first job ever was in a construction company that did just about everything. We did siding, roofing, decks, drywall, everything.
You said you started working at 13.
Yeah,
They hired you to do that stuff right away?
I learned how to do that stuff right away. Yeah, I
Good.
mean, when I came into the company, I was just assisting, throwing away trash and all of that, just little things. But I mean, I wanted to learn. I wanted to start doing something more. I felt like useless just picking up trash and doing all that, so I started to learn, and I picked up a lot.
We worked with my father a lot. We cut firewood and sold it, and then we hauled garbage. I don't know that I learned a lot of skill there, throwing a trash can up on the truck.
You got strong.
Yeah, that helped. But really what I would say was my first job. My dad bought each of us a lawnmower, and we mowed yards on the side because we didn't get paid by our father, although he said we're paid because we had a place to eat and sleep. But where I was making money, I'd pull it on my bike, and I'd have a sickle strapped to the handle, and I'd have my gas can strapped on there, and I would go mow yards. And one of my grandma's friends asked my grandma if I would mow hers. Big place. I mean, it took me 4 hours to mow this place. And I said to my father before I went, how do I know what to charge? And my dad would say, well, just look at him and say, what do you think it's worth? So I worked 4 hours on this. Now I realize this is in the 70s, but I got done and she said, what I owe you? And I said, well, what do you think it's worth? She gave me $5. And I was so mad. I came home and my dad goes, how'd it go? And I go, I'm never doing that again. I'm not mowing her yard again. He goes, yes, you will. You told her you'd do it. Now you're committed. And I said, Dad, she gave me $5 for 4 hours work. And my dad goes, and you'll go do it again. And she's friends with my grandma, and I think my grandma felt bad. So my grandma must have said something to her because the next time I mowed it, she gave me $40, which I was a lot happier. You know, $8 an hour back then was pretty good, but now the $5 I was not feeling very good about.
You know, the first time I ever mowed a yard, because when I grew up here in the US, I lived in apartments with my parents. And when I was in high school, I used to work at the computer lab in the high school. And one of my teachers there, he was like, hey, you want to earn some money? And I was like, sure. He's like, I need to my yard mowed. I was like, I'll do it. But I didn't have a lawnmower. So
You brought your goat?
he let me use the one he had, but he was like, "You know what? My lawnmower just crapped out. It broke, and I have this push mower, the ones that just the thing would just go around chopping the grass, right?"
The blade?
Yeah, it was made out of wood. Like,
Oh, you're talking about a self mower. It's not even with an engine.
nope,
It's
no
one of
engine.
those,
You
yeah,
push it, it goes.
has the blades all the way around.
Yep.
Yeah.
I pushed that for about an hour and a half straight, Tony, because it was a very bumpy yard. I had blisters
I
on
was
my
gonna
hand when I
say, I bet
slammed
you
it.
had.
That was terrible. I think that's where my trauma and mowing the lawn comes from,
Do you think the work culture today is different than it used to be?
for sure.
What do you think's changed?
You know, I think now people don't want to work if they're not treated correctly, or if they don't, well, let me change that. If they don't feel like they're treated correctly. Some places are, you know, just great to work at, and some places are not the best to work at. But I mean, if you have a family and you need the money, some people just make up excuses.
You know, the whole hustle culture, they called it the hustle culture, you know, where you feel like I gotta go, 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 go,
Hmm.
go. I think that's diminished some, you know, and you know, having been in school and in education for 32 years, you look at that and go, well, what changed? I mean, have kids changed? And I don't know that it's kids. Kids are gonna live up to expectations depending on what the expectations are. But I think it's parenting. You know, one thing is there's not as many manual jobs, so there's not as many jobs for kids to do. But where you go and you really learn to work hard, I don't think that's the same because of the change and things are more mechanical and less manual. But it's also, I think, the expectations of parents. You know, so many kids now are involved in, you know, year round youth sports and where they work, you know, finding time for that. So I think that's changed it some. Do you think any other than the hustle? What are some of the other things that maybe you think have changed? Now, this might be hard for you because you're 26, you know, and I'm 60,
Hmm.
you know, so I've seen a little more of that
Right.
than you have.
I think that the value of work has diminished. And the reason why, in my opinion, is because, I mean, I think it depends on the season. You know, some people grow up and they get taught these lessons about work and everything because their parents are going through it as well, you know. And then once you grow out of that, the next generation is like, well, I already went through all of that. I don't want my kids to go through that. So it's less. I think that older generation had to work a lot more, a lot differently than we do now. And a lot of that has to do with technology, of course. I think that more people now are focusing, and rightfully so. I mean, focusing more on, you know, computer work and technological stuff because that's where the world is leading up to, you know?
One thing I think really changed culture, work culture, was COVID. You had people working from home.
Yeah.
You know, my gosh, I can stay in my pajamas and do my work here. You had less communication. You know, more of it was through Zoom technology. But that interaction of being in a work environment, I think that changed it. I think it had a big impact on our work culture. I mean, who wouldn't love to work from home? You know,
Well, I think that a lot of people are, you know, they're man. what is the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
When you're not very good at speaking out loud and talking to people and,
Inverted,
no, is that
introverted.
introvert? There you go. So, I think that a lot of people are just naturally introverts, and being out in the work environment and having to do a lot of different jobs just pushes people to come out of that, and then they get used to that, being able to be out there more and talk to people more in the office or at their place of work, and then COVID happens, and they get put back into their little box of where you don't have to go outside, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that, and I'm comfortable here. And then COVID stops, and then people have to go back to their normal days of work and office and being outside and in the public. And maybe that's what changed a lot too.
So have you ever had a bad boss?
Sometimes I don't think it's the boss itself, maybe just the people around you.
It's the same as saying, have you ever had a bad leader?
Hmm.
You have good leaders, you have bad leaders. A lot of things go into that, but it's not like we don't contribute to that too.
For sure.
I mean, I'm a little stubborn and I'm a little bullheaded, but you have people that are better leaders. You have people who aren't as good of leaders. I think the good ones really understand, what creating a culture does for your business, does for your schools, it does for, any career that you're in. And people that are good leaders, number one, I think they make people feel good about being there. I think they make you feel good about doing your job. I work for a couple of guys coaching girls basketball for Jim Dodge and track for Fred Lamley. And I told people I would work for free for those guys because they made me feel so good about what I did. I don't think my wife would have been up for that, but I think good leaders make you feel that way. They make it enjoyable. They make it they still want to be great at what we're doing, but they're really good at making you feel good about being there and doing your job.
You know what happens when you build a good culture in your business or at your place of work? It builds people who wants to reach a common goal. I think that when everybody's in the same boat, and that only happens when your culture is built up to a certain point where everybody's in the same boat, everybody's proud of where they're working at and proud of where they're at.
Let me add something to that because you threw out the boat thing.
Mm.
Everybody's in the same boat and they're all rowing the same direction.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and that's what a great leader builds. I think that when you have a great leader, everybody wants to go finish that common goal for the company.
Well, and I think along with that, what makes it great to be there, and I think that's treating people with respect, being friendly to people. And then you're going to have different work personalities. You're going to have people, you get the grumpy guy, who's always going to be grumpy. You got the funny guy who maybe wants to kid around too much, funny guy. But then you have those people that are just very on task all the time. So you're going to have so many different work personalities in a business. We have 70 some employees.
Hmm.
Everybody's going to be different. Everybody's driven by different things, but I think a good leader recognizes that, and they try and work to each personality. But I think it all starts with being respectful, being polite, and then giving them guidance. Here's what we need from you. Here's what I expect, and then being consistent with that. And I think if you're doing those things, it creates a good work environment.
And a good leader motivates people, and they don't put people down. They motivate you to do what's best for you and for the company. That's the difference.
Hey everyone, Tony and Fernando with Pitstop, the Deers Ford Lincoln Auto Amigos Pitstop. I want to thank our drink sponsor, the Cart & Co. in downtown Fremont.
The Cart & Co. is one of the best coffee shops here in town. It's one of the local coffee shops in Fremont, and I can promise you that their coffee is delicious. Erica is kind enough to give us a different flavor of the week every time, and they've all been phenomenal. So if you have the chance to go to downtown Fremont and try the Cart & Co., give it a shot.
You're not going to regret that. One thing that's changed in our workplace, especially in the car industry, is technology, which affects a lot of people. Number one, our service people. We have now, you plug in a computer to diagnose car. Our mechanics who have to have schooling on how to service technology,
Hmm.
and definitely sales.
For sure. I mean, nowadays you have to have a lot of other things, not just the AC and the radio, right? You have so many other buttons, so many other things that you need to know about your car. And that's something that as a salesman, you got to teach your clients.
Which can be really good.
Yeah.
Some people might not want all of it, but it can be really good. A lot of things designed to help make driving easier for you. I would say one thing you're seeing is more, lane centering, self-driving Blue Cruise.
I think that's fantastic. It helps me out a lot.
What was shocking to me is I had an older gentleman who came in looking for a truck, and he goes, "Got to have Blue Cruise."
Really?
And I said, "You're kidding me. You're how old?" He goes, "I'm 93." He goes, "I go to Canada. I put on Blue Cruise." And he goes, "I just sit and enjoy the ride and watch the window because I have to." So that kind of shocked me. Um, so let's look back at your work career, or maybe talk about if you could do anything, what would be the worst job for you? A job that, yeah, I would never want to do that. Lawn mowing?
Definitely don't like lawn mowing, but I think cleaning out the portable restrooms, that is something I would not do.
And I couldn't. That
Mm-mm.
smell. Any job that would have bad smells would be bad for me.
Have you ever been in one of those things in the summer?
Yes,
Disgusting.
yes. And my father-in-law has some. When he was auctioning, he'd take him to the auction and set it up out there. And if you're working the auction, which I did some for him back then, and I had to use the restaurant, I had to go use it. And then he'd have to leave there and go clean those. And I thought, yeah, I couldn't do that. And so I'm glad he didn't ask me to go along. So one thing,
Just queasy now, just thinking about that.
one thing that is real at work, and I think everybody has to deal with, is burnout. And I'm going to give you a situation. Love my job. I've been fortunate to have two great careers that I've enjoyed greatly, and always wanted to be a teacher and a coach. That was my dream, and loved it. When I was the athletic director, which I loved working with coaches and I loved working with kids and everything, you have to set up everything. I really liked it, but I got burned out. It was all the hours and time away from my family and those things. And so when I hit 55, that's the retirement age, I think it shocked my wife when I said, "I think I'm going to get out. I think I'm going to retire." Probably shocked her two ways because we couldn't afford for me to retire. But also, she knew how much I loved it. And I just gotten to that point, and it wasn't because I didn't. It was just I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to put all that time into that. And it was just time for something different.
I'm sure between all the stuff that you had to do for the school and your position, you were feeling pretty worn out, weren't you?
If you talk about work anxiety, there was just so much planning, and there were so many things. And I'm telling you, most people think the athletic director just goes to watch the games. And the work is where you really don't see it. It's behind the scenes. And the only time you notice is if something doesn't go right at the game. And which still, you can be a great planner and that can still happen. But the way you avoid a lot of that is good planning. And it was, my days were run, 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 run all day. And again, I loved it, but I had just gotten to the point where, it was time to
Did
change.
you ever feel burned out while you were doing that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Some things you can do to try and help with that is find fun moments. I think there probably should have been times where I just got out of my office and, whether it was 10 minutes, just go walk around or, go visit with some folks but, I, me, I'm on schedule. I'm the calendar guy. I'm the schedule guy. And so I think I don't have time for those things. And I probably should have put more of that in there. And I think in any workplace, you want to try and do things for your employees that maybe give them a little break. You don't even realize. I mean, now you leave the office. I'm like, "Where's Fernando going? We got all this to do." And I know you know that. And I think that's part of just me. It's just I've been on that for so long that it's hard for me to get away from that, even though I'm doing something different. But I think as employees, and employers, you need to look at your employees and you need to say, what can I do to take some of that off of them? And a lot of that is their mental health at work. If I want them to continue to be productive and happy employees, what am I going to do to help with that? And I think Deers does a good job with that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the
100%.
things.
Yeah.
Tell folks about some of the things we do, which I think benefits our employees.
Deers is fantastic in a matter of showing up for their employees. We always do birthdays. Now we're moving on to just doing once a month where we shout out all the birthdays that happened that month. Not just birthdays, but work anniversaries and new staff. The new staff that we happen to have that month.
Everybody gets to know.
Everybody gets to know them. And I mean, even on Facebook we put a post about somebody's birthday or somebody's work anniversary, and all their friends and family just comment. They're like, "Oh yeah, Tony, good to see him. Happy birthday, happy work anniversary." People just like to see that. And that makes also the employee feel good.
And I think it shows we appreciate them. We celebrate them.
Mm-hmm.
We know what goes into making up Deers Forward. It's everybody that works here, and so we try and show them appreciation. When you're in public education, which is funded by tax dollars, you don't have bonuses. You can't do, hey, we're going to cater this, and because that's that's money from your taxpayers. My first bonus, my first year I worked here, and I got a Christmas bonus, and the Deers family gave us something, and they gave us hams. Man, I thought I was heaven. I'd never had one of those before. It was cool. And, the celebrations, when we had a retirement my first year, and I got to help plan it, and we catered it, and they invited their family in. What a great moment, for that person. Thank you for all the years you've been here. And, but I think those things really help, and I think our people feel appreciated, and that's important. That's huge.
And I really love those cakes.
the the cakes from Artisan Breads are always good.
And shout out to Edna and Raul from Artisan Bread,
who had Amigos do different jobs there one time, and
that was fun.
It's not easy. But I think those things really help. It's also good, but we can get back to Artisan Bread, Cart and Co., different places. When we celebrate our employees, we don't do all the cooking. We lean on those people too. So if money didn't matter and you could do any job in the world, what would you do?
I would be a philanthropist.
I'd say you're kind of there already.
Yes, but not with my money.
Yeah. I think, when you talk, you sit and think about if I hit the lottery, what would I do? And
I won't tell anybody.
Yeah. Well, yeah, don't tell anybody. But Nebraska is not one of those states where you can keep it.
Mm-hmm.
It's public. But I always thought I'd buy a ranch, and I'd just have different chores out there. One day I might hook up the tractor and take the big mower that you put on the back and go mow, or check fence, or, hopefully have some animals and take care of them. And obviously I'd have to get my son-in-law down there because I wouldn't know what to do with that. But I think I would want something that just keeps me busy because, of course you got to play golf every day, but I would definitely want something that I have things to do, because I don't think I would enjoy just sitting.
No, I don't think I would either. But I would get a ranch, a lot of acres. But I would hire people because I would not be putting up fence.
Like the kids you hired to mow your yard.
Exactly. I would just be out riding, in my land, seeing the sunset.
Good for those kids.
Yeah.
They're out making some money.
That's why I hire them, because I love seeing entrepreneurs.
If you could go back to your younger working self, what advice would you give yourself in your early working years?
Probably just trust the process. I think people put too much stress on trying to get ahead in life, but don't actually enjoy the process of doing it. I think people want to jump straight to, having all the money in the world, which is fantastic, but they don't enjoy what they're doing, and I think that when I was a kid growing up and seeing all these, especially nowadays, the kids see all of these young adults having money, having cars, having fame on the internet, and they just want that, and they put so much stress on themselves for not having it that a lot of other problems happen, right? But just trust the process and just keep being you, keep doing what you're doing, you'll get there.
The one thing I would say, and I don't think I'd have to tell my younger self this because my father said it all the time, but I would tell young workers, take pride in what you do. And my dad taught us that regardless of what job we were doing, we hauled garbage. We threw garbage cans up on a truck, and my dad would make sure we put them back where they were, put them back there where they're supposed to be. And because he wanted people to come out and see that, yeah, we're dumping your garbage, which isn't a fun job, but we take pride in putting things back where they are. So I think teaching people to take pride in what you do is a big thing. If I could go back to my younger self, I would say enjoy it more. Try and have a little more fun. When I started out, I was a young head coach and I was 28 years old, and I was so driven to prove myself that I wanted to win. And so I would drive the kids hard too. And I think I had some fun with them, but if I would do it again, I would try and have more fun with them. And I'm not saying not work as hard, not take as much pride in how we play or the effort we give, the hustle we give, how we represent our families. I'd still be that guy. I think those things are important, but I would look for ways to try and have more fun with the kids. And I know a lot of you who played for me probably shocked by me saying that, but I look back now and I wish I'd have been more that guy, not apologizing for the things I believe in, but I think you want them to love it. I'm not sure I did that all the time with them. So that's the advice I would have given to myself.
I think that as you get older and you see everything that you've done, it's just hard not to think what would have happened if I did this, but it's not always the best.
And one thing I'd hope you remember is work pays the bills, but stories from work and with your friends and colleagues are going to stay with you for a long time because the majority of your life you spend working.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just life. We have to pay bills. We have to be kids to take care of. And so, work is going to be 3/4 of your life, but leave it at work. I went to a workshop one time. One of the best things I ever heard is the speaker was talking about what do your people you work with or your kids, if you're a teacher, do they get your very best every day? And of course, everybody's going to say, yes, they do. And he said, what does your family get when you go home? Are you still giving them the very best of you, or is it what's left? And so leave work at work and try and give your family the best when you get home. I think that's great advice. And I try and do that more than I used to.
Work is stressful, and you can't change most of that, but enjoy your family. I think that a lot of people forget that, work is work and family is family, and sometimes it's hard to separate that time, but you got to focus on what's good in your life and have that positive mindset and not let a lot of the things that happen at work or throughout your day affect you and keep you from going home and enjoying that time.
So keep working hard, take pride in that, be a great colleague. Always strive to reach your goals, but enjoy your life, enjoy your work, and enjoy your time with Pitstop and the Auto Amigos. And we'll see you again next week.
Don't forget to follow us. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Hit that follow button. Make sure that your notifications are on every time we post something so you guys can catch it as soon as we post it. It's wonderful having you guys here. We will see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in.